Okay. We'll call this meeting to order.
All rise. Oh yes, this county commission meeting of Sumner County is now open pursuant to adjournment. God bless this country and this honorable commission. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Weatherford. Tonight we have for our invocation, we have Dr. Barbara Crawford, pastor of St. Luke African Methodist Episcopal Church, 355 Bly Avenue, Gallatin. Dr. Crawford served as pastor of St. Paul AME Church in Woodburn, Kentucky, and more than 20 years as assistant pastor of Payne Chapel AME Church. She is retired from the Metropolitan Nashville Public Schools after serving for 37 years as a teacher, reading specialist, and a principal. Dr. Crawford holds a Bachelor of Science degree from Tennessee State University, a Master of Education degree from Middle Tennessee State University, and a Doctor of Education degree from Peabody College and a Master of Divinity degree from Vanderbilt Divinity School. Dr. Crawford and her husband James have 2 sons and 3 grandchildren. And Dr. Crawford, we're honored to have you with us tonight to bring us our invocation. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'd like to preface tonight's prayer with a poem by Helen Steiner Rice titled, "Prayers Cannot Be Answered Unless They're Prayed." Life without purpose is barren indeed. There can't be a harvest unless you plant seed. There can't be attainment unless there's a goal. And man's but a robot unless there's a soul. If you send no ships out, no ships will come in. And unless there's a contest, nobody can win. For games can't be won unless they're played. And prayers can't be answered unless they're prayed. So whatever's wrong in your life today, to find a solution, just kneel down and pray. Not just for pleasure, enjoyment, or health, or not just for honor, prestige, or wealth, but pray for a purpose to make life worth living, and pray for the joy of unselfish giving. For great is your gladness, and rich your reward, when you make your life's purpose the choice of the Lord. Will you bow with me in a word of prayer? Heavenly Father, Almighty, everlasting God, thank you for this beautiful day and for another opportunity to rejoice and be glad. Thank you for your loving kindness, your tender mercies, and for your amazing grace. Father, I thank you for the commitment of this commission and pray that the purpose for which it was established be carried out in a way that is pleasing in your sight. I pray for an abundance of knowledge, understanding, and wisdom, and that the decisions made by this commission be carried out according to your divine plan. I pray a special blessing upon the residents of Sumner County, and I pray that every need is met according to your riches and glory through Christ Jesus. Dear God, I now ask that the business at hand be conducted in a manner that reflects a genuine love for you, and that a love for one another, as well as a love for all humankind. My prayer is that in no way will members of this commission or anyone standing before this commission on this evening lean to their own understanding, but in all their ways acknowledge you and allow you to direct their path. I pray for the health and well-being of every member, their staff, and their families, for healing, for deliverance, and for restoration wherever it might be needed. God, we love you, we trust you, We depend on you to do exceedingly abundantly more than we can ask or imagine in every situation. This is my prayer. I pray it in the name of your Son, Jesus the Christ. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Kemp, let's check our roll.
Roll call is now open. Each commissioner, please record your presence.
All right, thank you, Mr. Kemp. On your agenda, before we take a motion to approve it, let me note some changes that we have. Before we get there, let me inform everyone that Mr. Kemp let me know that we had a video card go bad late last week on our transmission system. We believe it's been repaired, but if you get any texts or anything from anyone saying that it's not able to stream, we're aware of it. It was under warranty. It's been repaired, and we think it's good, so we'll find out tonight. In terms of changes to your agenda, a couple of chairmen have been to me. 1903-01 will be pulled off to legislative for some more work. 1903-03, it's under budget, will be taken back to budget to do some more due diligence, some work there. And 1903-10, there was an error in the initial attachment, and if you'll look on your desk, you've got a new attachment that is correct. So those are changes to your agenda. Also, we're going to pull up to number 3 under announcements from the chair, the presentation from JPA tonight. Is there a motion to approve our agenda? So moved. Motion made by Commissioner Ring, second by Commissioner Rhodes. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, we'll do that. Okay, that's fine. All right. Your minutes are on your desk. Is there a Commissioner Taylor?
Yes, sir. I would like to correct something that I spoke to you about.
Hang on one second, Commissioner Taylor. Sorry about that. I'm going to get the camera to you with sound. Just one second. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I approached you after the last meeting of the amendment for the radio equipment.
Yes, sir.
The way the amendment was recorded, not that it was recorded incorrectly by the clerk's office, but my intent of being the second on the amendment was to have those costs absorbed,
Okay.
not added to a budget or increase the budget.
Okay.
It was absorbed within existing budgets. If you notice on your vote, I didn't vote
For or against it?
for or against the amendment. So I would just like that duly noted in the minutes.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner Taylor. All right, is there a motion to approve our minutes made by Mr. Becker? Second? Second by Commissioner Foster. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay. Please reflect that Mr. Mo Taylor and Mr. Jeremy Mansfield abstained from the vote on approval of the minutes. Motion passes with 2 abstentions, otherwise unanimously. Recognition of the public. Do we have anyone signed up for public comments?
Anyone wish to sign up that has not already?
Thank you, Mr. Weatherford. All right, let me remind everyone as we move into public comments, each speaker will have 5 minutes. Mr. Kemp will give you a 30-second warning. And we just ask, in terms of rules of good decorum in our body, that there not be any negative comments made about an elected official, citizen of Sumner County, or an institution of Sumner County.
Just a point of order.
Yes. Yes.
Is it possible to do the one recognition we've got this evening before we do that? So that-
That's a good call, Mr. Taylor. We're actually going to have 2 tonight, 1 official by this body and 1 by the sheriff. Let's, without objection, we will do that first, and I'm going to yield the floor to Ms. Tucker and Mr. Becker.
Good evening. I would like to have the Hendersonville High School cheerleaders to come forward and their coaches. I'm so excited to be able to honor our student athletes when we have a group of young ladies especially that have done so well, and we'd like to honor them for their awards tonight.
Some here, some on that side. We're split down.
And our little mascot.
I got you.
Y'all are really good at that. All right, I have a resolution honoring the Hendersonville High School cheerleaders. Whereas in February of this year, Hendersonville High School cheerleaders successfully competed in the 2019 National High School Cheerleading Championship held in Orlando, Florida. And whereas the cheerleaders competed in 2 divisions, Small Varsity Division I, competing against 54 teams, and Medium Varsity Game Day Division, competing against 48 teams, a first in the history of the school's cheerleading program, and placed 3rd in the nation, taking home bronze medals and a trophy. And whereas, in addition to this great achievement, the cheerleaders finished the season as state champions and Tennessee Extreme Regional champions in the Medium Varsity Division and semifinalist in the UCA Nationals and runner-up in the Mid-South Regional Competition and Tennessee Extreme Regional Competition in the Small Varsity Division. And whereas, under the direction and guidance of their coach, Harley Fuqua, and sponsor, Brittany Watson, seniors Emma McDaniel, Brooke Bryant, Claire Lucky, junior Sydney Irons, Sarah Beth Rudolph, Julie Mabry, sophomores Ricky Tefteller, Addison Middleton, Kylie Ivison, Emma Kimbrough, and freshmen Sydney McDaniel, Shay Fisher, Haley Atkinson, and Reese Tyler did an exceptional job, performed with grace and poise, and proved that hard work, diligence, and dedication are the keys to success. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Sumner County Board of County Commissioners, meeting in regular session on this 18th day of March, 2019, that this body does commend and congratulate Hendersonville High School cheerleaders and Ms. Harley Fuqua and Ms. Brittany Watson, and extends best wishes for continued success in all their future endeavors. And be it further resolved that this resolution shall be spread on the minutes of this body, and the clerk is to furnish a copy of this resolution to Hendersonville High School cheerleaders and Ms. Harley Fuqua and Ms. Brittany Watson. Congratulations, girls.
Motion made by Ms. Tucker, seconded by Commissioner Becker. All in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Hello. We just want to say thank you all for recognizing us. The girls tried out in April of last season, and our season took off. We traveled to Alabama for camp this past summer, where the girls ended the season with 4 Teamwork Excellence Awards. Then in August, they started out their football season where they cheered for all home and away football games. In October, that's when we traveled to regionals in Mississippi, where for the first time in our history, we competed in the 2 divisions, game day and small varsity routine. The girls finished runner-up in both of those divisions, which told us we could go back and had something to work towards. And then we continued to Brentwood for the Tennessee Extreme Regionals, where they placed first in game day. Then we went to TSSAA state competition, where we competed against 14 other teams. And this time we competed in just the game day division, which we're very excited to compete in because it shows our traditions for Friday night football games. The girls placed first at that, which was very exciting because it was our first state title from freshmen to seniors. And then we started basketball season, where they cheered Tuesday night and Friday night for the girls and boys home and away basketball games. And then we traveled to Orlando, Florida, where they competed at UCA Nationals. We're very excited that we took home semifinalists in small varsity and game day 3rd in the nation. at Orlando, Florida. Still doesn't feel real. But we want to thank you all so much for your support, our principal, our parents, our community. We couldn't do any of it without all the constant support. So thank you all so much. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, okay. Thank you.
Y'all feel free to take more photos out there.
And congratulations. It's so exciting to see all the wonderful things our young people are doing, and this is an exemplary group of young women, and congratulations on behalf of the commission. All right, this time we'll move to our, oh, I'm sorry. I'm not quite on my game tonight. I'm going to yield the floor now to Sheriff Sonny Weatherford for a special presentation.
Tony, if you'd come up, please, and your family. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What we're going to do tonight is we're going to give a plaque to Captain Tony Wingard. Tony has been with the Sheriff's Office for a little over 33 years and has decided to retire. And so we're going through the process tonight with that. What this says, Tony, is the Sumner County Sheriff's Office recognizes Captain Tony Wingard in appreciation of your dedication and contributions to the Sumner County Sheriff's Office and to the citizens of Sumner County. It's dated September 1985 to February of 2019. I'd just like to thank you for all your dedication that you've done to the Sheriff's Office.
Thank you, Sheriff.
It's been a good ride.
It's been my honor to serve the citizens of Sumner County. It's a family tradition. Several in here knew my father, who also worked for the city of Hendersonville and worked for the county up until he passed away of a heart attack. I got the pleasure of working with him for 10 years of my career, and it's just been my honor and pleasure, and I got to work under several great sheriffs, including Sheriff Weatherford, and thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Sheriff. Yes, sir.
Captain Wingard, thank you so much for your service to the county. We can't express our gratitude enough. Thank you. Yes, sir. All right, now this time we're finally going to get to citizen comments, and we're going to have the Honorable Mr. Joe Thompson come first from Circuit Court Judge, Public Square. Thank you, Judge Thompson, for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me. Mr. Holt, Chairman Langford, members of the commission, thank you for affording me the opportunity to speak tonight. Usually the roles are reversed. I get to tell attorneys to keep it short and to the point and control the time, so it's sort of freeing in a way to have a time limit. If I take 5 minutes, I've spoken too long, so I'll keep it brief. Let me begin by saying in a previous life, I was a city attorney for almost 18 years. I know how hard you work, how seriously you take your jobs, how honored you feel to represent your constituents. For that, I thank you for your service to Sumner County. As you can see, we have several representatives of the court system that are here tonight. I am speaking to you specifically on behalf of Judge Gay and Judge Oliver. Judge Gay is here. Judge Oliver intended to be here He contacted me about 5:30 today. He had a personal matter that arose, and he was unable to attend, but he did ask for me to speak on his behalf. We support the new Judicial Center project. We want to thank you for all of the hard work that you've put into this process to date. We know that your decisions today, though not easy, have been thoughtful and well considered. The fact is that the current facilities that we are in have been used in a masterful and thorough manner for, at least in the case of the building that Judge Oliver and I preside in, almost 80 years. The commission, this commission and commissions before it, have been good stewards of public funds by wringing every bit of useful life out of these buildings that currently house the 5 courts, 6 judges, and 2 magistrates who serve your citizens. But these buildings have outlasted that useful life. The County Commission acted in a prudent fashion in hiring judicial planning associates to undertake this evaluation. During this process, they have shown us that the buildings we have no longer provide our citizens with a safe, accessible environment. I realize the scope and scale of this project. I realize that these matters are weighty and will receive your serious consideration. Always feel free to contact any of the judges, court staff, district attorney, public defender, or me if you think we can assist you in your decision-making. Again, I thank you for your consideration tonight. I thank you for your service to the county.
Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Next up, we have Mr. Jay Ingram, 117 East Main Street, Gallatin. Thank you, Mr. Ingram.
I too appreciate the opportunity to address you all, and I know many of you, but some of you I don't know, so I'll just tell you, again, my name is Jay Ingram. I'm an attorney here in Gallatin. I've been practicing law for 19 years with the law firm of Phillips and Ingram, and my father is co-owner of a building with John Phillips Jr. in downtown Gallatin. And I'm somebody that's always tried to be active in Gallatin and Sumner County and try to show concern for issues that affect the community that I'm raising my family in. And because I love this county, and everywhere I go, I pretty much tell them Sumner County is the center of the universe, and if they don't believe that, then they're wrong. And, you know, initially when I heard talk of a new courthouse, I was concerned because I was worried that it was going to tear the heart out of downtown Gallatin and it would be a negative. But the more information that I got about it, the more excited I got about it, because instead of being a negative for the downtown and for the county, I think it's going to be a major investment that's going to be a huge positive and a driver for Gallatin and for Sumner County. And so I now am in full support of the land swap with the Baptist Church and with building a new courthouse downtown. I think it's going to be very beneficial not only for all of the courts, and I have a general practice. I practice in circuit, chancery, criminal, general sessions, juvenile, probate, so I'm in all of them. And instead of having to go 3 different places every day, and sometimes I'm in multiple courts in a day, to be able to have one courthouse that houses all those functions. It's going to be much more beneficial not only for the attorneys but all the litigants. A lot of times people think, oh, who really goes to court? It's all walks of life. You think about it, how many people are going to get into a car accident? How many people are going to have to probate a will? How many people get divorced? How many people maybe get a speeding ticket? Just all the different things that go on in your life that are going to go through that courthouse. So it's going to be beneficial for all of our citizens. It's not only going to be beneficial, though, for people going to court. It's going to be beneficial for people that need to utilize the services of the Sheriff's Department, or people that work in or are housed in the jail, because by having a new courthouse, you're going to be able to reshift where some of the functions are, and it's going to create new space for the Sheriff's Department and for the jail. In the long run, it's going to save money, and it's going to be a positive. So again, I think it's beneficial for the county seat of Gallatin, for all of Sumner County, and every attorney that I've talked to, and I'm an active member in our bar, has been in full support of this. It's not just the judges that you see represented here, the district attorney, public defender, but the people in the private bar. It's very difficult for us to meet with our clients in private and to having discussions, whether it's a criminal matter, divorce, or anything, when there's no conference rooms, no areas for us to gather. So the thoughtful planning that JPA has done, I think is going to make it beneficial for everybody that comes into contact with it. And as I said earlier, instead of being a negative, it is a huge positive, and I urge all of you to support this because I think it's going to be a great thing for Gallatin and for Sumner County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ingram. Mr. Clay Haynes, 814 Boscobel. Mr. Haynes, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Again, I want to say what a deep honor it is to come here before your body tonight. My name is Clay Haynes, and I wanted to just share a few words in support of the acquisition of the funds for this new courthouse site. I'm a local real estate developer, and I grew up here in Gallatin. If you grew up in a community with a certain population density and depth of history, you too probably had a very deep connection to that historic place. I've noticed that there's a unifying theme across these places. They are places of congregation and they are places of commerce, but they also have a courthouse. These are places that were designed to be at that intersection. And brick by brick, over the centuries, they were built to accommodate that function. Our downtown has established itself as a place where our community worships, where it transacts business, and where you can find something pretty good to eat and listen to a live show. At the core of this is our courthouse. It has served as a visual backdrop, but this body understands what's at stake. This is not about just appearance. The court system is at the economic heart of our historic downtown, and it must remain in our historic downtown. I believe that your vote tonight is far deeper than just routine business. Your support to appropriate these funds is a vote to honor our shared past and to invest in a brighter future. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Haynes. That just concludes our public comments. We'll now move to the report of the chair. Your veteran service report is attached. We moved up our certificates of recognition and special recognition, and we're now going to hear a presentation from JPA. So we'll yield the floor to JPA.
Present from here or from up there?
Right there is fine.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Well, we're going to pass out some copies of a handout to all the commissioners, and we're also going to be showing a PowerPoint presentation. I think that'll make it a little easier to follow. If you have a copy you can look along with us on. I think I'd like to start by reminding you how we got here. I think it's difficult to just jump right into an issue of a site without reminding you of the process we went through. We started this back in the middle of 2017, and our charge was to develop a strategic plan for the county, to try to figure out the future of your court system, to try to understand your court facilities, look a bit at the jail as well, all the ancillary support buildings that you're using, and come up with some recommendations. We gave ourselves 3 tasks, and if you're close to being up, we'll have that on the screen in a moment. The first task was a needs assessment, and there you'll remember we developed a report about that thick that had forecasts for all of the court components. We were looking as far into the future as we could. We were going out to about 2050, which is as far as you have population numbers for. We were looking at your existing facilities and giving them scores on a scale of 1 to 10. And then we were developing a strategic plan to try to take that information, the future growth, the way your court system should be operating, and meld it with your existing facilities to come up with a plan for the future. If you'll go to the next one, Cliff. This is your Sumner County resident population. In 1980, you had 86,000 people in this county. By 2017, you'd grown by approximately 100,000 people. You'd more than doubled in population in that 37-year period. As we look ahead over the next 33 years, you're going to grow by about another 85,000 people according to the state projections. And these were some of the more conservative projections. You could grow faster than this. Well, what's happening as your population grows, it's driving all of your court functions, all of your operations ahead of it. So you're adding judges, you're adding court staff, you have more cases, more people are being incarcerated. All of these functions are growing over time, and you have to stay ahead of that curve a little bit. If you turn to the next page, this shows you where your existing facilities are. And this is one of the more extreme cases of fragmentation, frankly, that we've seen, particularly in a smaller county. We've seen this in some large counties, but I don't know whether I can use can I use a laser pointer here on this screen? Some screens you can, and I think this one you can. If you'll notice, your courthouse square is right here. That's the historic courthouse. Right now, all you have in that courthouse is Judge Thompson's court, the clerk of court, the chancery court, and the clerk of master. Your criminal court has moved down here to the criminal justice facility in 2003, I guess. The two sessions courts are located down here. The clerk that is serving those courts is still located up here. Then you have over here the juvenile court, which consists of 2 judges, court administration, and a small clerk of court component, and then county probation behind it, district attorney general in this building right across the street from the courthouse, and then the public defender over in this building. Your court system is very fragmented, and it's very difficult for the court system to operate effectively and efficiently when they are that fragmented. Judges can't even really share cases in an effective way when they're separated by buildings like that. The clerk really can't staff all the functions that are going on down here, and you've got people constantly going to the wrong buildings. Now, what I'm not emphasizing as much that I need to is security. I'm reluctant to say too much about your court security in a public meeting, but it is virtually non-existent. And you're going to see some scores in a few moments that reflect that. Public safety is at risk here. It's not simply a question of overcrowding. It's not simply a question of inefficiency and fragmentation. It's also a question of public safety. And right now, you do not have good public safety in any of your court buildings. It's not that the sheriff isn't doing his best, because he is. It's that the physical facilities do not allow the right kind of separations of judges, parties, jurors, prisoners, victims, families of victims. None of those folks can really be separated effectively. And a modern courthouse does all of those things. Let's move on to the next slide, and I'll show you a little bit about what I mean by that. Let me start by showing you the component analysis that we did. We used a 10-point scoring system. Any building, literally, that has 4 walls and a roof gets a 1. No building gets a 10. Even our best courthouses that I've ever done, I'm not going to give them a 10. I'll give them a high 9, but that's the most I'll give them. In a county like this, I would expect to see a lot of 1s and 2s and 3s and 4s and maybe a few 5s. So we've used a scoring system that is sort of self-evident. Red is bad, inappropriate, and I'll call that even fundamentally inappropriate for continued use. Orange is inadequate, warning. Yellow, marginal, you can get by with those facilities. You're not going to see a lot of greens and blues, so I don't need to explain those to you very much. If we move to the next page, you'll see what I mean by that. Your historic courthouse is simply fundamentally inappropriate. It is past time that that building be retired as a courthouse. Your criminal justice center, which was built in 2003, was not really planned appropriately. It was planned to have different entrances for the different courts. The public doesn't know where to go. We still don't have separation there between courtrooms, judges, prisoners, juries. None of it works right. We gave that also an inappropriate. 2.6 is the score, if you can read those up on the board there. The Criminal Justice Center Sheriff's Department is the next worst in terms of score. The Sheriff's Department is extremely overcrowded. They're in the old jail, and they're just sort of packed into it. The next one is the jail itself. Now, this wasn't really part of our charge, but we felt we needed to be thorough. So we gave the jail a score as well. The jail is actually not in bad shape. We gave the jail a 5.9. I could have given it a little higher score, except for the lack of juvenile holding and for the overcrowding in the female component. Your female overcrowding there is severe. You're sleeping 3 and 4 to a cell that was originally designed for 2. They're sleeping on the day rooms, on the floor, on weekends. You're grossly overcrowded, and we have a solution for that. The juvenile courthouse is also very poor. We gave that score a 3.3, and that is almost as bad, but not quite as bad as the other 2 court facilities. And then we have the other components that we talked about: probation, public defender, district attorney general. District attorney general is in very poor space. Probation's in very poor space. Public defender's actually in pretty good space, and we're going to suggest leaving them right where they are. They're fine. Moving on, I want you to see the fundamental building block of a modern courthouse. Now, some of you have seen this diagram before. Some of you who are new to the commission may not have seen it before. This was first developed in the early 1970s in a document called the American Courthouse. We didn't come into this picture until the mid-'80s and refined the idea a little bit beyond what was originally envisioned. But the idea was to have public circulation, shown in light blue, on one side. There was a discussion earlier of attorneys not having any place to conference. Every courtroom should have an entry vestibule to hold noise outside, and then conference rooms flanking it for victims, for witnesses, for attorneys to confer with their clients. You really don't want that going on out here. You really don't want that going on in the courtroom. Where else can it occur? Well, this is a modern court set. Then you have, on the other side, judges' chambers and jury deliberation rooms in the dark blue. That's a restricted area. You're only allowed back there by invitation. That is a fairly secure area that you simply don't have now, and it allows for the separation of jurors from the public, from victims, from defendants. You don't want tainting of jurors to occur, and it so easily can. Then here is your secure circulation. These are prisoners, defendants in custody, those who could not make bail, those who are considered either a risk for flight or a danger to the community. They are brought to trial from a sheriff's department van. They're taken into a secure sally port below the building. They're taken into a secure holding area below the building, what we call a central holding area. And from there, they're brought up a secure elevator only to these cells and then into the courtrooms. So they're staged in a series of secure pathways through the courthouse so that they never mingle with anyone else. That's a modern courthouse. The judges, meanwhile, are coming up a restricted area from a private parking area below the building. So we've got them secure from the moment they reach the court facility till the moment they leave to go home. We can't protect them at home, but we have an obligation to protect them when they're here. And we'll protect some of the other court officials in the same way, the clerk of court, the district attorney general, and so on. So that's a modern court set, and that's the building block that we use and that you'll see later as we show you designs for the courthouse. I'll skip over this one a little bit. This is a lot to try to take in on a chart like this. This shows who we would put in the new courthouse and how big it is. And you saw this in our big strategic planning report. You've seen it again in our program, which documents how all the spaces in the new building work. But I'll skip over this one a little bit. The size of the courthouse is shown a little over 200,000 square feet. This is a stacking plan that we developed as part of our programming effort and that the architects are using as they design the new courthouse. We have a central holding area. We have a secure parking area for the judges. We have a loading dock, and we have some storage down there. If our site slopes, as the site I'm going to recommend to you tonight does, we actually get to have some of that without having to excavate for it, because the site gives it to us as a kind of a new first floor. The side on Main Street, on the other hand, is going to be at ground level. So it's sloping away, it's going downhill, and that serves us well here. Then the main floor would be the clerk's office, jury assembly, victim witness waiting, workrooms, county probation, some other things. Actually, victim witness waiting is on this floor. As we go up, we're having courtrooms. Continue to have courtrooms as we go up. Continue to have courtrooms as we go up. And then we've got a shell floor. The fourth floor is an unfinished floor. We want you to build the floor now, but we don't want you to finish it. It's just bare concrete. Someday you will want that floor desperately in order not to have to build a new courthouse. We have the ability to let this building grow internally while always maintaining those circulation zones that I've shown you to the end of this century. And that is a guarantee from us that we can plan this building for 75 to 80 years, no problem, before you have to build a new building. That is not what happened here the last time you tried to build a courthouse. That is not what happened the last time that Rutherford did until we were involved in the new one. That was not what happened in Nashville, in Chattanooga, in other counties in this state. We're encouraging you to think way into the future. And if you do that, you can take your new court facilities way into the future and operate them in a safe and modern way. Moving on from there, let's go to some budget information. You have this in front of you. It's basically the same information that you've been seeing from us since 2017. We are recommending a new judicial complex, a new courthouse, judicial center. We'll pick a name for it as we go along. Of about $78 million, call it 79 just to round it up. We're also going to recommend that we build a jail housing pod addition. This is not going to be part of the regular jail. It's going to be prefabricated or pre-manufactured housing where we can house some female inmates to relieve the strain on that female overcrowding. And we can take a small pod in that female section and create a juvenile section, which you really don't have now. So this is something that we would recommend doing immediately. And we're treating these as two separate projects, but sort of the phase one budget of a little over $80 million. Phase two cannot be consummated. It really can't be started other than design until you've built your new building. So let me give you some time frames. You've heard these numbers before. It's going to take you approximately 4 years to complete a new courthouse. The jail pod addition can be fairly quick, but the design process, which has already started, you already approved the funds for your architects. We selected them, and they started the 1st of February, basically, or early in February. That process of design will take the better part of 2 years. It might not take quite 2 years, but let's call it that. Then the construction of your new courthouse will also take about 2 years. I normally will say about 44 to 45 months. I like to round it, so I give you good news rather than bad news. Let's just call it 4 years. So you're moving into a new courthouse probably the end of the fourth quarter, 2022, beginning of the first quarter, 2023. It'll take that long. Once you do that, you can then, if you wish, renovate your historic courthouse. We would put the district attorney general in there. He's in very overcrowded space now. This would give him an improved space, and his proximity to the courthouse would be excellent. Or, if you want to, you can start this renovation first. And that would be renovating the Criminal Justice Center that we're moving the courts out of for the Sheriff's Department. We'll give him a lot of relief from his overcrowding in the old part of the jail. Once you've done 3B, then the jail can expand into what was old jail, what is currently Sheriff's Department space. We'll buy you another 10 or 15 years from that point for your jail before you have to do anything else, before you have to have any other treatment of the jail. So the plan here is we'll buy you About 75 or 80 years, I think, somewhere around 2095, turn of the century, for a new courthouse. We'll do a little bit immediately to get some immediate relief for the females and the juveniles. Then we'll renovate the historic courthouse, put the district attorney general in there, and you can plan when you want to do that. That could happen immediately. It can happen whenever you want, but it can't happen until we move out and free up that space, so we've got to get this built first. And then you can do these two before, at the same time, or after the historic courthouse renovation. So this whole thing could take as little as 6 years, as much as 8 years, however you'd like to stage it out. And that'll be your decision as you move forward. But I wanted you to have the total picture here. This has come up in a couple of questions. Well, what are we doing with the jail? Can we relieve any of the overcrowding now? There are some things that we can do, but they're all contingent on phase one. Now, moving forward from there, let me show you our plan. Most of you know this by now. When we were charged with doing this strategic plan, we knew there was an interest in saving the courthouse. That was a major movement. There was clearly interest in keeping the court in downtown Gallatin. But at the same time, we had an obligation to try to be as objective here as we could and to come in and give you our best professional advice. In this particular case, our professional advice coincided with most of that movement. Courthouses need to have that urban core that an earlier speaker referred to. If you have any history, if your county has any history, that history resides in downtown Gallatin. Courthouse Square is the center, the heart of this county. If it's not, where is the center? If that's not the heart of the county, where is it? Is it your most recent urban growth? Is it suburban growth? Where is it? We had that same issue in Rutherford, where their historic courthouse square in downtown Murfreesboro was really the beating heart of the courthouse, or of the county, even though population had shifted. We recommended that we try to stay downtown, and if we are trying to stay downtown, we really wanted to be on Main Street, and we really wanted to be in the central business district. We wanted to try to be near Courthouse Square if we could. We were lucky enough to find, and I think it's just luck, to have an underutilized site that close in the central business district. Otherwise, you're tearing something down. You're going in and tearing down existing churches, existing businesses, existing whatever. Here, we had one old building that is currently being used as a youth ministries building by the First Baptist Church, but otherwise we were clear. Our obvious choice, other than this site, was the current location for your juvenile court, what was the old school board building, and the probation building that is right behind it, right here. It's not as good a site for a number of reasons. You can see that it's got an irregular geometry, for one thing, and that already starts to penalize us. That already starts to make a more irregularly shaped building. But more than that, it's not a good neighbor for the church. Their playground is right here. It's not going to be a good neighbor for the church at all. But more than that, I think your central business district really ends right here at Boyers Avenue. I mean, you'll even see the signs, welcome to downtown Gallatin, or welcome to historic downtown Gallatin, starting at this intersection. There were a lot of reasons for picking this site, but let me show you some more. One of the things that we wanted to try to do was to create more of a government plaza and then create more of a church. You've got your public square here with your historic courthouse. You've got the county library right here. If we put a courthouse here and create some sort of a plaza out in front, we can really start to connect these things in a good urban planning way. Let me show you what that looks like when we're finished. We basically have a civic campus, and then we've got a church campus, because now the church, if you did a land swap and a sale, because there'll be money involved, the church can now expand in this direction at the same time that the court and government functions are expanding here. As I move on with this, here's the alternative. If we went, for instance, to Site 2, which we considered very carefully, we studied this for a period of time. If we did the same thing here, and we came over and tried to create our plaza here and our judicial center, we're really starting to impinge very closely on the church now in a way that I don't think is going to work well. I think we've got to put a street between us and the church in order to have things work well. But look what it does to the campus. It landlocks the church in a way that prevents it from being able to grow anymore, and it kind of creates this bifurcated judicial campus or county campus, which is where you've been before. We're trying to get you to some consolidation, and that really doesn't do it. So we concluded that it was really in your best interests to try to work out some sort of a land swap, land purchase, whatever it was, with the church, and a process took place that took several months of negotiation that culminated yesterday in a vote of the church, 90% in favor of accepting the offer that Justice Planning Associates and the county collectively made to the church. We'd recommended that you offer the church $865,000. And I'd like to take just a minute to explain how that number was arrived at. The church has recently spent about $600,000 renovating its youth ministries building. If we can go back, yeah, that one. This little building here that used to be Federal Post Office was renovated. They can't just take over that juvenile building, which used to be, where you're reusing things as much as you can here, a school board building, without a renovation. So it's going to cost them, I think the figure was about $550,000 to renovate that juvenile court building for their youth ministries. And we looked at their numbers. Those are valid. Those are reasonable numbers. Then we're displacing their parking. This is currently church parking here. They're going to have to replace that parking. So they're going to create a series of paved parking lots here and a little bit more across Smith Street, and just to make them whole is going to cost $863,000, and the recommendation was made, can we round it to $865,000? So we rounded it to $865,000. In return, they agreed to remove their contingency and to just go with current dollars. It's a bit of a risk. We felt it was a worthwhile risk. We felt that they could afford to make that gamble, that if we all moved fairly quickly, they'd be able to build what they need to build for current dollars. So we vetted all that information in making the offer on behalf of the county, or the recommendation on behalf of the county for $865,000. That's what they voted on yesterday, and now it's the commission's turn. I'll show you one more thing that I think is important, because this question has come up and I'd like to address it proactively. Here is what we are suggesting we would do, and we have enough information now to be able to show you a diagram for what we think the courthouse would be like. I cannot tell you what it looks like. We've not started on the outside of the building yet. I don't know. It will be a traditional looking building. It will not be a modern looking building like Rutherford County. So it will be a building that is more in keeping with the historic downtown. But it will have about this shape. It'll have an entry piece right here, and you'll be able to enter from here or enter from either side of that entry piece. That'll be sort of an entry hall, probably a two-story space. We'll then have a plaza next to the church that frees up their sanctuary. The sanctuary comes back to here, and their stained glass windows are here. One of the early promises I made to the church, and perhaps it was bold of me, but I did, was that whatever we did on this site, I would protect their sanctuary, and I would make sure that we weren't blocking their stained glass windows. Will actually be benefiting them compared to having the youth ministries building there. I want to do the same thing on the library side. We don't have very many windows on the library side, but what windows we do have, we will try to protect and stand back from them. I also don't want to create a massive building right on Main Street, because this is a big building. Once we get back past that entry, this is a 5-story building, and a courthouse floor-to-floor height is much more than a normal office building. So this is a very tall, very big building. If we'd put it over here, it would have just loomed over the church. If I can put a street between us, I think I can protect them and make things better for the county. I'm going to recommend that we try to put a parking garage here. This is where we probably need to build this parking garage. You're going to have a parking garage for your new building. We can't park blocks away and expect people to use this building effectively. Juvenile court parking is right there for the juvenile court. Criminal Justice Center parking is right there for the Criminal Justice Center. Courthouse Square, people are parking around the square. When I consolidate all your courts, you really are going to have a parking garage, and that's where I'd suggest putting it. You own the property right behind the library. These businesses own the parking spaces right here. But if we displace those parking spaces, we can put them back under cover in a parking deck in a way that I think will please everyone. So I knew that question would come up. I'll be glad to answer other questions, but I wanted to go ahead and show you today. We've now entered into some discussions. The county and the city have started to talk about parking, and we can talk about it, I think, openly and in public now that this is our recommendation. So I apologize. I don't know how long that took, but I went through it as fast as I could.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. We appreciate that. Before Mr. Thomas sits down, do any commissioners have a question for him? I'm going to go to Mr. Larry Hinton. He's first in the queue, and then Mr. Ring, you're next.
Would you, you said that we could not do the courthouse downtown until we had the judicial center built. That was your word. You said we cannot. Right. Now, we all know that we can, but would you elaborate on the process that it would take to go to the old courthouse downtown and undertake to renovate it as one of the first moves this project made?
Well, in order to do that, you'd have to empty it. So when I said you can't do it, what I mean is, if you wanted to move Judge Thompson's court and the clerk and the Chancery Court and the clerk and master into temporary space somewhere, you could go build space for them somewhere, temporary space. And you could then renovate that for the district attorney general. But now what? I mean, the solution here is to build a new courthouse, then move people out of the historic courthouse into the new courthouse, and then renovate the historic courthouse. If you'll do it in that sequence, you'll not only save money, you'll save wear and tear on your public, on the sheriff, on the court, on everybody else. So that's what I meant, Commissioner. It's not that you could not find a physical solution to do it, it's that you wouldn't. It would not be a sequence that you would undertake.
So your recommendation would be, if the first phase of this does not get funded, that with that vote, we'd be voting to leave the historic courthouse in the condition that it's in until ultimately we fund the bigger building and empty.
Yes, sir. That would be my recommendation. If you really feel that you cannot build a new courthouse right now, you just can't do it, fair enough. But I don't think you can fix the sheriff's department and the jail space. I don't think you can fix the historic courthouse until you do. And frankly, if you tried to fix the historic courthouse, you'd be putting a Band-Aid on it. What you need to do is take the courts out of that building. They do not work there. Courts do not work the way they worked when that building was built. We have completely different standards. We have Americans with Disabilities Act. We have fire codes that are different. There's nothing in that building that really supports having courts in it. I'm just being as frank with you about that as I can be.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hinton. Commissioner Ring.
Thank you. You mentioned putting the DA's office in the historic courthouse. What other uses would you recommend that we use it, that we put in there?
Well, I thought of several potential uses. It'd make a great chamber of commerce. You could do some sort of historic preservation society. You could do public meeting space. I don't know what you would do with it, though, if you didn't put a county government function in it that you need to put somewhere. You're going to have to find space for the district attorney general somewhere. Now, we can put him in better lease space somewhere. If we could find better lease space in the downtown area, we could put him in the courthouse. But now your courthouse gets more expensive, and now what do we utilize that historic building for? We kind of asked everybody, give us ideas. What can we put in your historic courthouse? And the best idea we could collectively come up with, we had our court advisory panel with representatives from the city, the Bar Association, the court, everybody on it, was to use it for the District Attorney General's office. There may be some other solution, but then again, remember, if you don't put the DA in there, we'll have to put him somewhere because they're in very overcrowded space now.
Yeah, I agree with that. Only one question I'm really asking, or maybe I need to re-ask it or ask a different question. Are there any other county court functions that you could see putting in there other than the district attorney's office?
I think that's the best. The other court functions I'd really like to consolidate. We're going to try to put everything that you've got except the district attorney general, who I would put in that courthouse, and the public defender, who's in great space. I mean, of all the spaces we looked at, the public defender was in the best space. I'd leave them there. They're fine. Probation, you could put probation anywhere. I chose to put them in the new courthouse so that we can easily take them out, and you can grow with another court where they're currently located. If we went back to that stacking plan, I can show you how we would grow over time. And some of it is obvious. It's finishing the shell form. But I've got 3 other components in there that could create future courtrooms, and they're still connected to a holding unit. So someday, if you wanted to have up to as many as 16 courtrooms in that courthouse, we could do that. We could accommodate that. But to do that, we've got to put some people in there, and probation was one of them.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Commissioner Ring. Commissioner Kruger.
Backwards, sorry. Okay, I'm thrilled to see this jail housing pod addition on here now, after we've talked about this for quite some time about the juveniles and the female population. I'm curious about 2 things. How many more juveniles and females will this accommodate? Is my first question.
I'm not sure. What we did was set a hard budget for ourselves of $2 million, including the design fees to do this. We're in the process of trying to get some quotes now. Now that we have an architectural team on board, they're reluctant to even talk to us until we have an architect on board.
Okay.
But we're in the process of trying to figure that out. I would say we probably will be able to get not fewer, I'm going to go out on a limb and say not fewer than about 60. Typically you do pods of say 64 or something like that, females. We may get lucky and maybe we can accommodate as many as 96 or something like that. What we have in mind is dormitory type housing. So it's not individual cells, it's dormitory housing. It's relatively inexpensive to build, it's relatively inexpensive to supervise, and you'll keep your harder females then in your cells. But we should be able to free up a pod, and your pods are about 10 cells, I think, in the female area. Right now you've got females double and triple celled in there. We wouldn't do that initially with the juveniles. So we should be able to develop 10 or 12 individual juvenile cells, and you could double bunk if you needed to. So we could create a pod. Now, I'm not necessarily encouraging you to go to long-term juvenile housing. I know you're currently involved with Rutherford County, and you may continue to be involved with Rutherford County for a while. If you take on that juvenile responsibility, long-term, as opposed to 48 hours or something like that, there are some other conditions that you'll have to meet. We haven't really looked into that. I just thought I'd mention it in case I was conveying the impression that I'm trying to give you long-term juvenile holding. I'm trying to improve a situation in which you can accommodate about 4 juveniles over in that criminal justice center and the rest go into sick bay. And that's not where they ought to be. You ought to have them in a pod somewhere, even for 48 hours. So we think we can accomplish that, but I can't give you hard numbers yet. We're looking at some different companies and seeing what they can do for us. But it's kind of pre-manufactured housing. That's sort of what we have in mind.
Okay. Well, that brings me to my second question. The pre-manufactured housing, what are we looking at as far as how long do we expect that to be sustainable and last? And
it'll be sustainable.
What's the kind of expectancy on something like that?
I can't give you a hard number.
An approximate's fine.
It should certainly last 20 years or more. I mean, people have been doing things like that in places like Contra Costa, California, and Orlando, Florida, and so on for decades. Texas, you've probably read about some of that. Some of it's almost like a trailer or a Quonset hut. It's hard enough to hold inmates inside, but it's not luxurious.
Okay.
I mean, it'll have shower facilities and that sort of thing, but you'll
I'm not
probably
necessarily looking
take
for
them elsewhere
luxury.
to
I'm just
feed
looking
them.
I'm not looking for luxury. I'm just looking for how durable and sustainable is it for long term?
It should be durable for a couple of decades. I'm buying you time with this. Same thing with the movement into the old jail. You will someday have to build additional jail pods. You can either do it on your existing site, you can do it somewhere else. But I think I can buy you another 20 years or so before you have to do that. You take this stuff in stages, solve one problem as comprehensively as you can, then solve the other one on a slightly more marginal basis. But here's something I think it's important to say. If we built a 2,000-bed jail today, you could fill it up in 10 years. You tend to fill up jails. Courthouses don't work like that. You're not going to get new judges just because you built new courtrooms. You build new jail cells, you will tend to fill them up. So when I say I can give you another 10 or 15 years, I don't know how quickly you'll fill it up, but I do know you're overcrowded now.
Right.
And you're not ready to build a new jail, and it would be horrifically expensive to do it.
Okay.
Thank you, Commissioner Kruger. Commissioner Graves.
Mr. Chairman, I've got a couple of questions, I think. I'm still a little concerned about the money that we're not only spending here, of the swap and whatever. I'm concerned about the other items, and one of them was taken off the agenda tonight. But, you know, I look at everything by the acre. I live in Bethpage, of course, but we're spending $70,000 or $80,000 an acre for this property, or more. But I believe I've wrestled with this, but I'm going to support this. I do. If I understood you, you could expand a little bit more about the parking garage.
Yes, sir. What would you like me to expand?
Do you have any idea how big the garage would be?
I do. I've been reluctant to mention numbers too much because you and the city will be continuing to have conversations about this. But I think for the court only and for the parking that we're displacing around the library and behind those businesses, we'll need a minimum of 400 spaces. So I think that this is probably, we've had an architect already look at the site. And that drawing that you saw, that rectangle, was his first pass at what we could fit on that site and what would work efficiently. Garages don't work with just any number of cars. You need to have a certain number of cars per level. He used 84 cars per floor. We could go 4.5 floors and have about 360, give or take. We could go 5 floors and have about 400. We could go 5.5 floors and have about 460. I don't think you will build less than 400. And I think that will come pretty close. You could copper your bed a little and go a little bigger. I don't think you want to go smaller.
Okay.
So that's as far as we are at this moment on that question.
I don't know if I understood or not. Does the county own that whole?
No, sir, you don't own all of it. You own the space directly behind the library. The space that is behind those office buildings over toward Water Street, you do not own, but it is our assumption that you could displace those parking spaces if you add them back in a parking garage. I would make that trade. You've got a few people who are business owners. You've got some apartments there. If you give me the choice of being undercover in a parking garage or being out in the rain and the weather, I'll probably take the parking garage, particularly if we give them dedicated spaces. And I think that's easy to do. Put them on the first floor. So,
What part, you said the city of Gallatin is going to maybe partner with us on that too?
I don't know.
We don't have any type of negotiations at this
There is
point.
conversation that is occurring between city officials and county officials. Is that going to work out in your favor? Are they going to do what you'd like them to do? I can't tell you that. All I can tell you is, as a consultant, you have to have a garage to support that courthouse, and you've got a chance to have conversations with the city, which will also benefit from that garage, and hopefully they'll help you.
Okay. Without the parking garage, am I hearing you saying that there's no way we could build a courthouse?
You can build the courthouse without a parking garage, but I just don't think it'll work for you. Now people are having to park down at the Criminal Justice Center and walk up that hill. I don't think that's practical. I think that you're going to have to build a parking garage. All of these pieces have to fit together. It's like a puzzle, a jigsaw puzzle. And if you leave pieces out, it's just not going to work well. So I'd love to tell you, yeah, you can go build your courthouse and you don't have to build a parking garage. Part of the reason I'd love to tell you that is it would be giving you a little better negotiating position. But we've been asked repeatedly, don't we have to have a parking garage? And I can't dodge that question. Yes, you do. And there's a good place to put it, and it's just pure luck that you have a place that it's not prominent, it's back behind buildings, which is a good place to put a parking deck. We can enter it from Smith Street. It's an awfully good solution, and it's just lucky that you have that solution.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Commissioner Graves. Mr. Becker.
So yes, my question surrounds the parking garage as well. The dollar figures that you included in your packet, I'm assuming do not include parking.
No, sir, they do not.
So how much is a 400 space parking garage?
Approximately $8 million. The parking spaces in a structured parking garage will cost approximately $20,000 per space, and that should include design fees. So you can just kind of do the numbers in your head. If you build 400, it'll cost you about $8 million. If you build 450, it'll cost you about $9 million. I don't think you can build less than 400. I really would not advise that. You could build more, but I don't think you can build less. But the reason that was not part of our original strategic plan was, number one, we didn't have clear identification on a site at that point, and number two, we knew that there was going to be ongoing discussion with the city, and it just did not seem like something that we wanted to put in a report at that point. You've always needed a parking garage. Once we displace parking on that site, and once we move you from the Criminal Justice Center, move you from the juvenile court location, move you from Courthouse Square, yeah, you're going to have the parking garage.
Yeah, I definitely understand the need for parking, for sure. I'm just trying to understand timing-wise, and I haven't been, I don't know which county officials, maybe besides Mr. Holt, have been involved in those discussions with the Gallatin city officials. And I understand the jigsaw piece analogy or whatnot there too. So I just think that without knowing that information, it's sort of hard to sit there. We approved this land and all of a sudden we have zero leverage to, very little leverage for the Gallatin city to build that for us, right?
The problem with this whole project, and the problem with any of these county projects, is there are no secrets. When you approved funding to hire architects, we hired the architects. The architects have started their design work. We have to. We have to start, or you'll never get finished. We're doing it on Site 1. We're doing it on that site. And the church has representatives on our advisory committee, and the city has representatives on our advisory panel. So there really aren't any secrets. They know we're designing on that site. The land swap doesn't make it any more or less of a secret than it is now. Do you have leverage with the city? I have no idea. If you do have leverage, the leverage doesn't change. If you don't have leverage, the leverage doesn't change. So,
yeah. And I don't know. I mean, leverage. I know we work closely with all the cities, so I know. Yeah, I hopefully can trust that our county and city officials will work together, because obviously this is a big economic impact for the city of Gallatin.
Huge.
Other than, I represent a portion of Hendersonville, so obviously the city of Gallatin is the big player here, but I understand that it also helps the county level too. So just wanted to understand, and I don't know if anyone can comment on when the parking garage agreement would come into play. Is that something that would get ironed out soon, or is that something that may take a while?
Mr. Thomas, could you maybe just give him your best understanding of when we would start building a parking garage, just so at least we can have kind of a time frame of when we would need it?
well, the parking garage will be an easier design and a quicker construction than the rest of it. I can't really say that right now. I think we need to get into the weeds a little bit more on the project before I can.
Let me rephrase. Like basically, I mean, you've done a lot of these projects. Basically, how long start to finish does it take to build a parking garage on average?
Well, I would say that we could do a parking garage in probably 18 months, design and construction. The problem is staging it. When are you going to be displacing parking? When do you need it? How much laydown area do you need? Should you build your courthouse first using the library area as a laydown area for the construction? And that's the part I'm struggling with. So you have time. That's the point. You have time to work this out. You have time to figure it out.
I'm sorry. And generally you would want, I'm sorry, Mr. Becker, and generally you would want to stage that out so parking would come in towards the end of the project before the courthouse opens. Is that correct?
Ideally, you'd like to have your parking built by the time the doors open, yes.
Okay.
And it's a much shorter duration period, which is what you were driving at, so it can start later in design. I do think you have time to work out the details of this. And even if you pass your resolution tonight authorizing the purchase of the property, you won't have a contract for a while. It's going to take a while. Mm-hmm. But each thing that you push back in time is going to cost you more money because you're going to have less dollars available from our original budget each quarter that passes because there's inflation that's occurring on everything. So everything that we're going to try to do is going to cost a little more if we push it out further in time. I think, again, my best professional advice here, we're trying to eat an elephant. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. We started by saying, let's go on and hire our architects and we'll gamble that we can get the site. We won the gamble. The vote passed by 90% from the church to do the property exchange and sale. I'm encouraging you to take the gamble again here. You're not locking yourself into an irrevocable commitment because it's a resolution. You still don't have a contract yet. But we've got to start the design process. We've got to keep going. I'll be involved in some of the negotiation with the city. I'll do my best for you. I can't promise we'll be successful. But however it goes, you can't build a courthouse and not build a parking deck. So whether the city helps you or not, you're still going to have to do it. And they kind of know that. I mean, it's not like we've got any secrets on that.
Yeah, I guess my question is, or maybe my next question is, the negotiation with the city of Gallatin, is that, I mean, I don't understand why that would need to be delayed.
Oh, it's not delayed.
Okay, so they can negotiate, get the details ironed out, and then from a timing standpoint, not start building or designing whatever until a later point, but.
There was a meeting not long ago, and there'll be another meeting coming up very soon, and there'll be other meetings after that, and I'll be part of some of that. So it's not being delayed. I mean, we needed to have some green lights.
Looking at it is almost irrelevant because, as we've seen, recommended site 1 is far superior to alternative number 2, and I think we've negotiated in good faith, and we need to stand by what we've discussed with the First Baptist Church. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ring. Mr. Tinsley.
Okay. So this is probably the most cut and dry thing that I've heard up here since I've been here for the past seven-ish months. We're literally just swapping a piece of property and giving them the money back for the renovation so that they can renovate the juvenile court building, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I'm done.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Tinsley. Michelle.
I just wanted to point out, I serve on both general ops and on budget, which is the committees that this moved through to get to the floor tonight. In both of those committees, it was discussed about an appraisal. And both of those committees came to the same conclusion that an appraisal would not change their mind in moving this forward to the full body. Because, again, that is what the church is asking for. We have vetted that number. The church has taken out all contingencies in that number. It's an extremely fair number of what they're asking, and we have had outside counsel look into that number to make sure that that is an accurate number of what it would cost. So I just want to clarify, appraisals were discussed in both committees, and both committees chose to move it forward without an appraisal. So I'm not sure what referring it back would do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
I'll be glad to repeat myself, Mr. Chairman, on that, if I may.
Go ahead.
There are reasons for getting an appraisal before you buy a property. A lot more times, often than not, properties are overvalued and overpriced. This county commission approved spending of citizens' hard-earned tax dollars on properties without providing the citizens proof or peace of mind that their funds are used in a fair deal. Doing business in this manner does not convey to the citizens that work is being done in their best interest. There are no records to prove otherwise. So I appreciate all the good faith intentions, but I appreciate even more what is the real dollar amount? What is the real value? Citizens appreciate that. So I know this piece of property was sold to them for $240,000, and we're buying it back for almost $900,000, plus giving them another piece of property and buildings to accommodate with that. So I would like to know, I know we have a habit of we like to give away things and the value of things.
Mr. Mansfield, I just want to interrupt you. We'll be back on the general motion, which it sounds like your comments are headed towards now. Like right now, we're on your motion to refer.
Okay, I'm just explaining why I would like to refer,
Okay.
and that's basically because I think it's in the citizens' best interest to know exactly what all is involved with this, an appraisal and a contract of sale. And again, we're the bankers here, and a bank would not do this without these items, and so I don't think either should we. So.
Okay. All right. So first, let me announce that Mr. Kemp has gotten our live feed back up. So if you're getting texts from people at home saying the live feed is down, the live feed is now up again. So thank you, Mr. Kemp, for that. Let me remind, we're about to vote on motion to refer. A yes vote is to refer back to budget to get a third-party appraisal. A no vote is to not refer it back to budget. I think everybody else at this point is. What's that? Okay. On the motion to refer.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'm sorry. Mr. Tinsley.
Okay. So again, we are not purchasing a piece of property. We are exchanging the juvenile court property for the property where their student ministry is. And we are just reimbursing them the cost of their renovation. Am I correct? So we are not paying them $800,000 for a piece of property. We are just reimbursing the costs that they just, I think in the past 2 years.
I think to be fair, and again, I think we're getting a little bit beyond the motion to refer. I think to be fair, basically what you're doing is there's a package to swap properties.
Right.
So you are changing ownership,
But we're not purchasing the land. We're just saying, you have this piece of property that we want, and you want this piece of property, so here, let's trade. And since you put all this money into this building, we are going to reimburse you that cost.
I think would be splitting hairs on swap versus purchase, but yes, I agree with you. I agree with the spirit of what you're saying, but I can see the nuance of whether it's purchase or swap.
Okay, I'm done.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, now, Mr. Hyde, Mr. Taylor, y'all are still on the general, correct? Okay. All right. So again, yes vote is to refer it to budget to get a third-party appraisal. A no vote is to not refer it back to budget. Let's vote.
Motion to refer is on the board. Each commissioner, please record your vote. All 24 votes are entered. Does anyone wish to change your vote? Motion to refer fails to carry. We're back on the main motion.
We'll go to Mr. Hyde.
Mr. Chairman, I came here really tonight with the intent of voting yes on this because the issue of property, desired property, I think is greater for us to have it next to our facility, our county property already. However, there are several things that are just restraining me, and it is more around a frame of timing than anything. If I got the information correctly when we asked our finance director about bonds, I think I wrote it down at that time that at 2022 we would have approximately $100 million capacity. Is that correct?
Mr. Longing.
Calendar year 2022.
Yes. And at the end of calendar year 2024, the county would have capacity of 117 million, approximately. Okay. This project supposedly could be finished by 22.
Yes, without objection, we'll go to Mr. Thomas from JPA to answer this question on the timeline.
If you wanted to, you could move into a new courthouse at the end of the fourth quarter of 2022 or early in the first quarter of 2023. That would be moving about as fast as you can move. If you wanted to delay it, you could move slower, but moving slower would end up costing you more money because inflation would be eating up your budget. So the budget that we've allocated of approximately $78.5 million for the new courthouse and $2 million for the housing pod for females would probably need to be spent by the end of 2022 or the beginning of 2023. So that would be approximately $80 million. You could do it slower. You can't do it much faster.
Okay, so that's, I'm pretty much on track with that. So at the end of 2022, we're done. There's no money to issue bonds. Now we've tacked on an $8 million parking garage. Where is this money coming from? That's all I need to know, unless we stage this differently and the timing is differently. Now, I have heard maybe a half a dozen times the statement that we're in the best shape that we have ever been in. And you know what? We are. And you know why? Because we had a windfall of a tax increase on the people in Sumner County. And maybe everyone else in here represents a district unlike mine. But I have a lot of good, hardworking, middle-class people in my district that cannot stand another tax increase of that sort. And unless someone can tell me where that money is coming from, that's where we're headed. By either an outright tax increase or leaving the tax rate as it is, and the new assessment bring in 24% more money out of their pocket, which is a tax increase. Now, my people cannot afford that. They tell me that. They cannot afford it. I am not opposed to this project. I want my friends in the judicial system to understand I am not opposed to this. If I've heard my wife say once, she has said a dozen times that Jay Ingram was one of the best third-grade students she ever had. But you know, but I'm not opposed to the project, and I told these gentlemen that today, and I came here tonight leaning toward the purchase of this property because it is a desirable piece of property. But these pieces of puzzle for me, I'm an old man that maybe I don't figure out things as quickly as other people, but to me the pieces of the puzzle are just not coming together. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Hyde. We're going to go to Commissioner Mo Taylor.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I'd had a whole lot of notes and a big speech prepared and everything else, and a lot of my questions and concerns got answered. I would like to take some of the new people back on how this got started. We were actually in this room right here, November of 2016. We were reviewing the new system that we had. We were basically taking presentations on the different vendors that could possibly do that. There was a briefly mentioned during that meeting by the chairman of possibly putting a judicial center out where the Enterprise Park was going to go. Briefly. Nothing that was even, you know, an ideal or a theory, but it was briefly mentioned. Well, buddy, the newspaper ran with it. And that's where we got Save the Courthouse, Keep the Courthouse. It was kind of you know, it was nothing mentioned in, you know, definitely or anything like that. So that sprung a movement of Keep the Courthouse. Keep it on the square in Gallatin. I don't oppose that. And I want to commend the chairman of the General Ops Committee and everybody on the ad hoc committees for all the hard work that they put in and done, getting us to where we are today. But where we are today, I can't necessarily agree with. No disrespect for anybody in the judicial system. Any of my neighbors in Gallatin, the city of Gallatin, but we're looking to build a new courthouse. I think we need a new courthouse. But our focus, and in Site 1 and Site 2, our focus has only been in one area. Well, tonight, you know, one of my biggest questions coming to this meeting tonight was parking. Parking. Y'all have heard me ask it in committee meetings. Parking. Well, I've got as many questions now as I got answers. So, you know, in good faith to vote for this, I don't think I can. That's just one issue in voting for it. You know, our citizens down in Millersville, Shackle Island, Bethpage, Mitchell, Westmoreland, we all come in to have to utilize these facilities. And you know, I think we've really focused on looking out for Gallatin and the square. And I mean, no disrespect by saying that whatsoever. No disrespect whatsoever. Because this is the, kind of like the library, the Gallatin Library of Sumner County. This is will be the Sumner County Judicial Center in Gallatin. You know, there's a lot of questions that was posed in the referral back to the committees that I agree with, that I strongly agree with. We've got to have citizens trust. We got to have the citizens know that we're looking out for their best interest. And I don't think anything inflammatory is being done, or anything like that. But we have, you know, we went into this year with plans. Well, our plans got changed. We bought some land. We spent a bunch of money. We spent $500,000 on a piece of land already. We had another $450,000 piece of land on the agenda tonight that wasn't planned for when we started this year, when we started this budget process. But we are now the proud owners of 17 more acres, 18, 17 plus or minus, on Airport Road. Not that I'm mentioning, because I know that this is going to pass, more than likely, but we go into every year with plans, and those plans get changed. And this is a massive expense, $102 million. Well, tonight, probably going to be 110, maybe 112 in what we've heard about a parking garage. Or joint venture, I tried to do my homework. In the front page of the Gallatin paper, March 14th, 2019, is Gallatin's moving towards bond issue. So I try to keep up with what everybody else is doing as well. In that article, it says that the bond issue will be between $10 and $12 million, and there's a whole laundry list of items that those will address. So I don't know what kind of venture that we'll go into on a parking garage with $20,000 a spot. Is that what it costs? You said $20,000 a parking spot. So, you know, I don't know how all that's going to work and all that's going to play together. But, you know, looking out for our citizens with all those unanswered questions, I can't vote for this. I was going to vote to refer it back to the committee, but that's already failed. So, but I won't make any amendments or any motions. I'll just let us get on with our night. But I felt, after talking with citizens as early as today up in Westmoreland, that, you know, when we go into these countywide ventures before, I would just ask that we look out for all of our citizens, because all of our citizens pay all the county bills. We're all lumped into one big pot. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. We're going to go, you know, we've tried as a practice to get people that haven't spoken yet in the queue. Mr. Driver, we're going to come to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I want to echo a little bit of the sentiment that Mr. Hyde has talked about tonight. When we started this and we've talked about it, and when we approved the architectural plans and all that kind of stuff, we did that to get a price on every building so that we could decide which buildings we were going to do when. Okay? And it does concern me a little bit about the speed that we're moving with this, that it seems like we have one thing after another just coming up to be voted on. And that is a little bit disturbing to me, because I do believe that this is probably not, and for me anyway, that I'm probably not going to vote for this to happen in 2020, start in 2020, because I don't see where the money's coming from either. Having said that, this property is available now. The agreement has been reached with the church now. It is the site we want, whether we start building this next year or start building this 3 years down the road. It is the site we want. It is the site that's been recommended. I believe it's the site we need. And so regardless of when we're going to start this project, I believe we should go ahead and do this while it's available and while an agreement, in theory, has been reached with the church, and get this property taken care of.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Driver. Mr. Becker?
I agree with what the Commissioner just said about the timing of the property. I also agree with Commissioner Mansfield stated earlier about, I don't know if he used the word transparency, but basically something we can show the citizens as to how the price tag got placed upon and why it was agreed upon. And so I believe, going back to my comment earlier during the presentation, it was mentioned 863,000. So I would like the documents that show that $863,000 price tag before I will vote for it.
Okay.
I mean, the presentation stated it. I just would like to see that.
I can tell you, Mr.
information.
Becker, I met with the church, and actually the cost that they believe that they incurred was $1.2 million. And they had all that verified. They had estimates and everything. I can't give that to you tonight, so I don't know if that's going to impact your vote, but
if it's 1.2, then all of a sudden we're making a good deal. So that would be like, to me, you know, citizens asking me, why'd you vote for it? If I can show them something that say, hey, here
right.
is what it is, that would be great. And that's all I'm asking for in this situation.
And, you know, and I think, Mr. Becker, we can get that for you. If what we're doing tonight is approving for Ms. Denon to negotiate with the church. I have no doubt, like my experience with First Baptist Church Gallatin is that they are completely transparent with everything that they did. I think, you know, I can't ask them to bring their documents up to you right now. I have no doubt that they would provide those for you.
Well,
but yeah, go ahead.
So I guess I would maybe hope that those documents were readily available. I heard some paper ruffling over here to my right. I don't know if that was looking for it, but I would also assume that we as a county put money to renovating the buildings that we're giving them. So I don't know if the money that we spent renovating our building was included in the 863 or not. So I understand that they renovated their youth building or whatever, and then they're going to have to spend some money to renovate the building that we swap or whatever. So I trust that the number is a good number, it's an accurate number. All I'm saying is that I would like to see it and how that number came to fruition, and
yeah,
it would make it a lot easier to understand and explain.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Commissioner Chris Taylor. Oh, I'm sorry. Hang on. We double clicked. We're going to come back to. Commissioner Chris Taylor.
I'll just address real quick the question of how we're going to pay for it. And I know I'll just kind of quote what Mr. Driver said so perfectly. We're buying the property today that we have money for today to pay for it outright. The long-term plan, oh, sorry.
Oh, you go ahead. Go, I'm sorry.
The long-term plan will be decided by the 24 of us in here. There's not a set date when we're going to start. The only thing we've put into motion is the architectural design. By buying this property, we allow ourselves a site, one of two, and then we can just go forward from there. The same thing, the numbers we were just talking about for bond, were based on zero growth over the next however many years we projected it out. I think everybody in the room understands we're going to do a little better than zero growth this year, next year, and the following years. And again, like we said before, if for some reason we hit a recession, the whole idea of doing it a little bit at a time, kind of like how we've done the schools, is that if something bad comes up, we'll just stop, and we won't fund the next part until we have the money to fund it. So if we build a pod for the women and juveniles and we don't do anything for 2 years, yes, we're going to be charged more because of inflation, but we won't do it for 2 years. If we have the money to do it right then, just everybody, I'd like everyone to understand the money for this property is there right now. We're not having to assume extra debt. It's already there, ready to be spent. And then as far as the long-term plans, those will come out as we learn more and more from the architecture, which can't be done until we do tonight. So.
Thank you, Commissioner Taylor. Commissioner Hinton.
I have a weakness in my desire to be frugal. When it comes to buying land, I'm for it. See, 100 years ago, I really insulted people about this building that we're in right here, and I forgot what it cost. 20, 40 million. What would it cost today? You can't, I wish I'd have bought every piece of land around me when I was young enough to work and pay for it. So it don't bother me. It don't bother me for the county to buy land. We just bought some up behind us back here that we'll eventually need. Somebody, our grandkids will. Somebody will. We'll never go broke buying land. So the land, it don't bother me. Some parts of the project bother me, but the land don't bother me. But now I do have one question. Let's suppose that we go through with this deal with this land swap. We get everything zipped up. We now own the property next to the library, and the church owns the juvenile courthouse and the county probation, and they say we want it. We're ready. We're ready to replace this building that we sold you on Site 1, so we'd like you to hand this over to us. What are we going to do with 3 judges? I mean, I know our nose gets short, but we can't move them now anywhere else because we've already decided that we can't move them out of the old courthouse somewhere else where we could go ahead and renovate it. So we can't move judges, we've been told. So what are you going to do with these 3 judges that's in the site that we're going to trade away to the Baptist church? And we're going to do that. This is going to pass, barely. But we're going to do that. But somebody needs to have that discussion among ourselves, with the judges, or with the Baptist church. And maybe they've done decided that.
Ms. Denon is so it'll be part of the negotiation process of signing the final contract about occupancy and things like that. But I'm going to go, Ms. Shell wanted to respond as Chairman of General Ops. I'm going to jump to her.
This has been discussed. It's been discussed with our judges about the possibility, if this were to pass commission tonight, what that would look like. Again, we are just approving for Ms. Denon to go into negotiation. All of that will be worked out. The church has been extremely gracious in our negotiations at this point. I think Mr. Chairman just said their original number was 1.2 million. They took every bit of contingencies out of that. They've been wonderful to work with. This is in the best interest of their congregation, their church family, as well as in the best interest of the county and the citizens. I don't foresee any problems in negotiating this to come to a reasonable solution.
Thank you. Mr. Hinton, did you have any more questions or comments?
Will this come back before the floor before the deeds are signed?
No, sir.
So we won't know the answers to all these? But it'll be down the road before we find out the answers. That don't seem quite right.
Would you like to address that, Ms. Denon?
All these questions are things that we've already been making lists of that will be part of the deed. You have authorized, if you'd pass this tonight, the money to be spent for the purchase to be made. Normally what we would do after that, we'll draw up a contract, a closing will take place, and then we would report it to you that the closing had taken place. Anybody that wants to see the contract as we proceed with it, we'll be happy to provide it to you.
Mr. Hinton, floor is back to you.
I hear you.
Okay.
So we won't know. We won't know till it's done too late to know. That's what we just said.
Okay. All right, Mr. Tinsley.
I've halfway forgot what I was going to ask. So really what we're doing, we're just okaying Leah to go forward. We're not saying that we're building the building tonight and that we're building a parking garage tonight and that we're just saying that she's going to go and talk to the First Baptist Church.
She would be approved up to $865,000 to negotiate a deal for the swap of the properties.
Okay. So even tonight, if this passes, and I'm sure it will, that's not us locking ourselves in to start the building process on Monday morning and break ground, and we're going to build the new judicial system, and we're going to put Judge Howard somewhere, and like all this is not just going to happen on Monday morning.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Foster.
Mr. Chairman, I'll call for the question.
Okay. Mr. Foster calls for the question.
Mr. Chairman, seems like I get hung out on, I got one more question.
I'm sorry, Mr. Graves, but.
Mr. Chairman, I would request from Commissioner Foster that he would withdraw that to let everybody else in the queue decide to keep.
Mr. Foster, it's up to you.
Commissioner Graves, unless there's something new and provoking, I mean, this issue's been discussed, and I think we're ready to vote, in my opinion.
So,
Mr. Chairman, evidently he's not going to do it.
it doesn't look that way, Mr. Graves.
No. This question might change some mind. Thank you anyway.
Thank you, Mr. Graves. All right, let's vote on the call of the question. A vote yes is to end debate, and vote no is to continue debate.
All right, the call for question to end debate is on the board. Each commissioner, please record your vote. All 24 votes are entered. Does anyone wish to change your vote? Question receives 14 votes, does not receive necessary 2/3.
Mr. Graves, I got some good news for you. We're gonna, unfortunately, your time is not right now. Commissioner Ring is up next, and then you're up.
Thank you. This is a question for the law director. Am I right in my recollection that a courthouse must be within the county seat? Is that correct? Okay. So with that being said, Gallatin is the county seat. If we were to, and let me make my comments now, if any place else in Gallatin would be, we would have to buy land. And guess what? Land in Gallatin is getting much more expensive because everybody wants to build a house there. And so this is a cost-saving measure for us. This will cost us much less money than buying land would. And it's keeping the courthouse near the jail where it needs to be. We don't want to have to transport prisoners across town. We want them close to the jail. This is an ideal location. This is the best, as far as I can tell, and I've looked around the square and the downtown area, this is the best location for this situation. So I hope that this will pass overwhelmingly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ring. Mr. Graves, I'm about to cue you up, but I got to say I'm fascinated with this question. Like, we really built this question up, so we're going to go to Mr. Graves.
Mr. Chairman, I got a question for the finance director. I know we've run over this and over. We know about how much bond money we're going to have in the next 5 years or so. But I would like to know some other projects that's online probably coming up from schools, remodeling schools, or other buildings in the county that we might renovate, buying land, or whatever. Because it seems like we're going to be a little short at this point, but if you can answer that.
The only thing I've received to date is for the middle school at the new complex, which I believe they said was 4 to 5 years down the road, which should be in the second bond issuance.
I can actually speak to that, Mr. Lowing. The only thing that we've discussed on the school side is around 2025, 2026, a middle school on the new school campus. We approved the high school, but it'll be a joint middle school, high school to begin with, 6 through 12, and then a K-5 elementary school. So at some point, probably around 2025, 2026, we would need a new middle school.
So, Mr. Chairman, how much is that middle school going to cost? You to know approximately. I've heard the number, but
I would say between 30 and 40. The positive is all the infrastructure. When we build the new school campus, all the infrastructure and all that will be built. Mm-hmm. So that will provide us some savings. So it won't be as expensive as the new high school. But the numbers I've heard, and this is just ballpark, so it's not really necessarily germane to this motion, but around, I'd say between 30 and 40 is what middle schools are being
So
built
you
for.
hadn't heard anything about any other renovations in school?
No, so we're pretty much done on.
Proposed? you
We're
think?
pretty much done on renovations on the school at this
Beth
point.
Page needs something. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You know, the one thing I've learned over the last 5 years is that Mr. Graves never disappoints. He came through on that. Ms. Kruger.
Okay, I think Commissioner Ring already addressed one thing. I wanted to confirm that it needed to be within the Gallatin city limits. And so I won't go into derail the talks about what's after the property purchase and all that, but we've been given a detailed accounting of where the price of this property came from, right? I mean, he went through, from what I heard, went through everything on how we've come up with the price and that they've agreed to that so far. We can't change that. And new land is not going to be, nobody's building any new land. Nobody's creating any new land. So I'm kind of concerned on how where we're thinking we're going to do this when you can't make new land to do it on. Our judicial system is not optional, and it serves every single district that we all serve. It serves the entire county, everybody in it. So I don't want to act like this is something that people that are going to be paying for that it's not serving, because it serves everyone and it's something we have to do. It's not an optional service. We're an elected body that's supposed to serve everybody, and we're not only in doing that, we're also supposed to work well with the businesses, the churches, all the nonprofits within our county, and work well with the cities that are in our county. And I don't see how buying this property, this specific property is not accomplishing all of those things. And it does, like I said, provides the services that are expected for our citizens. And that's it.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Kruger. Mr. Gamenden, last in the queue.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll make it real fast. To me, this is very simple. Do we want to, I'm a proponent of downtowns, and I want to see this built downtown, somewhere on the square, close by, and I think that this number one option is the best place. When are we going to do it? I don't know. But I do know the property's available now, that if we don't build this 5 years from now, but at least the property's available now, they've given us a price, the price that they will agree to with a swap, and I plan on voting for this.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gamenden. No one else is in the queue. Let's vote.
Resolutions on the board. Each commissioner, please record your vote. "24 votes are entered. Anyone wish to change your vote? With 20 affirmative votes, resolution is approved."
All right, no one take off. We're not done yet. We got a couple more. We'll go back to Commissioner Chris Taylor.
3-08, appropriating $39,535.02 from the general fund unassigned fund balance to replenish deployment supplies for emergency medical services. I so move.
Motion made by Commissioner Taylor, seconded by Commissioner Guthrie. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
And the last one, is this the one that's rewritten, that's printed, or do I
No,
need
you
to?
you got 09.
Oh, thank you. Appropriating, 1903-09, appropriating $9,215.91 disaster relief reimbursement for public education equipment for emergency medical services. I so move.
Motion made by Commissioner Chris Taylor, seconded by Commissioner Baker Ring. I see no one in the queue. Let's vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Commissioner Taylor.
Last one is 1903-10, appropriating up to $50,000 from capital projects local funding for greenway repair.
Motion made by Commissioner Chris Taylor, seconded by Commissioner Sullivan. Commissioner Mo Taylor is in the queue.
Is this the station camp?
Yes, it's all of that and a little bit more too, Mo. The concern is that we might have some T-deck fees in there, and so it's up to $50,000. And we're hoping, what Ms. Ark thinks, is that we'll be able to hit that threshold where we're going to get reimbursed for all of it, hopefully. She feels like we're already at the number that you have to be at for reimbursement for disaster relief.
So didn't we build these in floodplains?
What's that? I'm sorry.
The greenways, aren't they built in floodplains?
Some places, and it depends on, most of them are, I think, because they're built by creeks.
Yeah.
Well, to tie that to this, that and I may have asked the wrong person in November of 2018, when we were voting on the bond issue for the school. If you look across the street from the Station Camp Market, all the survey flags going down next to the creek, that's surveyed for the sewer system. In my understanding, also possible for expansion of the greenway down to the new school. Could the county executive speak to that? That's in the plan.
Mr. Hull, do you want to address that about future greenway destinations?
We'd like to, Mr. Chairman. We'd like to expand the greenway. We'd like to expand it all the way to Cottontown one day. But that's up to whether you want to fund it or not.
But that's in plans that we have right now, is to expand it.
That's in the plans.
Okay. Is that in with the cost of the easements for the sewer system running to the new school?
Depends what people want to sign. You'd have to have easement for the sewer and easement for the greenway, and then you also have to easement for water lines.
Because.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Because these are in what I would call a flood plain, right next to a creek. So, you know, I've voted for greenways before, but as we quit cleaning our creeks out, we're going to continue to have flooding issues. TDEC's got us on both sides. You can't clean your creek out unless you go through this permit process. Well, now if you're going to do anything next to the creek, you got to do this. So it's a catch-22. I mean, it's a catch-22. And I just hate to see spending good money after bad, fixing something that we've got to take a proactive approach on to stop from happening, and that's cleaning our creeks out. I mean, back when I was, you know, a kid, that was a big business, creek gravel. So I just hope that in doing this, we'll get with TDEC or whoever we need to do, whoever the municipality is around the creeks that's causing the flooding along our greenways, and try to get some assistance in cleaning out the creek so we'll quit having so much damage because of flooding. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Motion's been made, properly seconded. Let's vote.
Resolutions on the board. Each commissioner, please record your vote. All 24 votes are entered. Does anyone wish to change your vote? With 22 affirmative votes, resolution is approved on first and final reading.
Motion to adjourn by Mr. Foster. We're adjourned.